So, I was originally told to do a comedy routine up here by Julian Pradeep. Is he in here right now? I gotta call him out on this. But anyways, the idea more or less drove me bananas. And after thinking about it for a while, I decided that apparently it was not very appealing. So after that, I thought about doing something that was more my style. I really enjoyed the field of astrophysics. So if you would direct your attention to this slide here, it should be really obvious that the first approximation for the orbital determination requires you to take the r double dot vector, cross with the scalar multiplication of the acceleration in the direction of the elliptical orbit. And then I realized all of this rocket science stuff is too trivial for you guys. Way too easy. So, instead, let's tell some stories. Ooh. Thank you very much. Over the summer, I had a fantastic opportunity to attend an astrophysics camp in Santa Barbara, California. Every single night was spent puzzling about the mysteries of the galaxy. And while that left very little time for sleeping, I really was living my dreams. We had lectures by day and problem sets by night, but within this busy schedule, the coordinators thought it would be fun to go on to field trips. Or maybe they thought it would be funny to see exhausted kids at phenomenal Los Angeles landmarks. I don't know, your call. But during those bright California summer weekends, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of sorry, I'm off track. 36 sleep-deprived kids were flopping out of a school bus, blinking in the bright sunshine. We stumbled across a sizzling concrete parking lot filled with tired mothers dragging their young kids hyped up on grape juice, eager to see scale models of our solar system at the Griffith Observatory. As we dragged our feet past the grassy lawn, we passed this large stone obelisk that none of us really paid attention to. And it was only after we passed the stone obelisk that we realized there were some faces on there, and they're sort of looking at me. So I wheel around, and yeah, there was Sir Isaac Newton staring straight into my soul. And at this moment, I realized that this was a monument for the modern astronomers who have made everything we learned, everything that I was studying at camp. So like any other nerd, I sort of squeal, perhaps a little bit high-pitched. If I try to do it now, I might overload the speaker, so I won't try. And I run sprinting over to the monument, eager to check it out in detail. And as I'm sprinting, I hear this nasally voice behind me say, "Oh, to be young and naive again." So let's pause this story for just a second and pretend that I'm frozen mid-stride, and let's consider what naive means. Let's get a show of hands. How many people have been called naive in their lives? Raise them up. Okay, now how many people have been called silly in your lives? One last one. How many people have been called kid and resented it for it? Most people believe that the word naive is really negative. It's a term for people who have not yet experienced the world, a contrast to the proud, "my child is growing up," that parents may pamper on about. But naive can also be a positive mindset. To me, naivety is about having hope for the future, even when the situational evidence points otherwise. I was naive 3 summers ago when I was preparing to go to my first stay-away camp. Stanford's EPGY program was having this class called Frontiers of Physics, 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 Physics. Exciting, right? So in preparation, my dad and I got these most wonderful books. Books about relativity, quantum mechanics, paradoxes, and so much more. These books traveled with me on the flight to San Francisco. And even though our luggage was heavy, it was balanced out because my heart was so light with everything I was about to learn. But instead of the days flying by, it felt like time slowed at that camp. What should have been the time of my life resulted in me moping alone in my dorm room. It was the last night. The soft piano music flowed through the walls as hurried conversations quickened in place. The knowledge of finality weighing down the atmosphere. It was the last night of freedom, of stolen kisses, of midnight conversations, of bonding with friends, and everyone was enjoying it to the fullest. Everyone but me. I hit a brick wall that summer, made up of my jealousy and disappointment. I couldn't focus on these physics topics that so interested me because I felt insignificant beside these amazing peers. My roommate was not only an amazing physicist, he was even an extra in the movie The Hunger Games and had exotic stories to tell about his worldly travels. Everywhere I looked, I saw people falling in love and making best friends for life. And the accomplishments and cohesiveness of my campmates made me ashamed of who I was and who I was not. It was a long camp filled with negative thoughts and disappointment at the very little that I understood. That summer, I thought that my worst fears were confirmed. As a scientist, I need data in order to reach conclusions. Given this new data point, it seemed like a trend was being solidified, a trend that I despised. Because no matter where I went, I felt doomed to be an outsider looking in. No matter, it happened when I came to Interlake. No matter how many clubs I joined, and believe me, I joined every single club, it still felt that I never belonged to a real community. It happened when I moved to Seattle. No, as much as my new classmates finally shared that same passion for learning as I did, I always seemed to play second fiddle to their adventures. And it happened while sitting on a playground of a school in Tennessee, where a young elementary school kid sat in the shade, did not choose to run and shout with the other students, but instead sat under the shade of a twisty slide, reading fantasy novels and just wishing in his heart that one day, he would get a shot at being the main character, the protagonist of the story, of any story. But then I thought that everywhere I looked, the only thing I could see was more negativity. It felt like the hopes and dreams of a young kid almost faded. And that kid felt like a weary old man in a body not of his liking, just trying to get an education so he could move on, rush off to the next stage of his life. But returning home to Bellevue at the end of that summer, I attended my first TEDxRedmond conference, TEDxRedmond 2012. That conference was transformative for me, as Jack Andraka, Nikhil Goyal, and Taylor Wilson delivered fascinating stories of what young people could really do. Quick side note, as I was preparing for this talk, I ran out of paper at my desk, and I had to grab the first notebook that I found. Only after collecting all of my thoughts did I realize in the front were my original TEDxRedmond 2012 notes. Looking at it, I have not improved my handwriting one bit. But anyways, what was truly amazing about that conference was that I learned even the brightest minds were ultimately human. I heard about the struggles that even prodigies face. And though these speakers were perhaps more accomplished than me, my classmates, my campmates, everyone I knew, they still felt like me, sometimes alone, sometimes afraid. But they all had a naive hope for the future. They taught me that everyone had a potential to do great things, regardless of their background and regardless of their knowledge. One key moment for me that night were not the eloquent speeches delivered on stage, but a side event. I was wandering through the Microsoft Conference Center, poking my nose into places where my nose probably should not have been, when I accidentally came across this closed door barricaded by a couple of desks. As I reach over to open the door opens by itself, and a dancing Jack and Draca appears. So for those of you who don't know, Jack and Draca was a 2012 Intel Science and Engineering Fair grand prize winner. He received over $100,000 in grant money for devising a new, simpler, and more cost-effective detection method for cancer. And he was also dancing to pop music right in front of me. He was quickly grabbed in as the voices from the committee members hissed, "Close the door!" But I saw on his face real happiness and joy, and a belief that the darkest nights of loneliness only make the lights brighter. Okay, maybe I didn't see all of that from his face. What I really saw was a sweaty high school kid like dancing no better than I could dance. But the energy that he and all of the speakers had implied radiant hope. To say that I became the happiest kid in the world would be a lie. Coming back to school, the same challenges greeted me. I had my ups and downs, but the only difference was that I was now prepared to use my new weapons of hope. I embraced a concept that I had read about from Walt Disney, that sometimes it was fun to do the impossible, and I believed. I embraced everything that made me, me, and resolved to never lose hope in what I could provide for the world. Because as important as it is to be diligent to get things done, more crucially, you can never lose the naive hope in your heart, such that your soul will never crumble under pressure. Maybe the only thing you need is to see a large stone statue of your science role models to re-spark curiosity. Maybe you need to see someone who you might have thought serious come up on stage in a banana suit. But whatever it is, keep your heart alive. Never feel ashamed if others try to look down on you because of your optimism. And never feel weighed down by the burdens of this world. Because you, and only you, can make an impact in your community, in your schools, or for a single friend. It's been my privilege and great joy to be here and help organize TEDxRedmond 2014, bringing in speakers to fill everyone with stories and ideas. Even as I see this community grow and change, I hope that the light in your eyes will never dim, and that the spark of curiosity in you will be eternal. Thank you very much.